Okay, now we're live on YouTube as well.
Okay.
So sorry I had to duck out early last week. One of the risks of doing class from home.
Well, that's perfectly fine. Once we get going, then it's no problem.
Yeah, but I just felt a little bad because I was going to check in and see if anyone had any problems finding the course materials. So I'll check in at the end of class tonight about that. Hi, Jeevan.
Hello, Jeevan. Shall we start?
Sure.
Okay. All right, well, it's 7:01, so we should start.
We should start.
Yeah. So anyways, so before we start, again, welcome to Discovering Buddhism, Module 12, Wisdom of Emptiness, and this is session number 2 of 4. Okay. So if you're seated on the floor, obviously, different, you can get up and do your prostrations, or you can, from your seat, just do the prostrations, 3 prostrations. Again, it is not obligatory that you have to do prostrations. You are not bowing down to someone. You are just simply being humble, paying respects to the teachings that Buddha gave us. And it kind of humbles us a little bit. So I'll just do the 3 prostrations and we'll take it from there, okay? One second, I have. Right. So let's bring our mind to the teachings today. And so again, you should be all familiar with the 7-point meditation position. And the whole idea is to keep your back straight, not too tight, just upright. Your legs, if you're seated on a chair, I'm assuming most of you are, then just keep your feet on the floor. If you're seated on the floor, then you want to get into a Vajra position or a half lotus position with your feet folded. Your arms are on your side, again, loose. Your palms are touching right one over the left one, and the thumbs are touching in a shape of a heart, basically. Your head is slightly tilted, okay? And your jaw and mouth are relaxed. Okay? Your tongue is touching to the upper side of your palate, and don't clench your teeth. And your eyes are slightly open or slightly closed, however you want to do it. And you're gazing at the tip of your nose or towards in the front of you or towards the floor. The whole idea is to be relaxed. A lot of people used to sit this way at the monasteries and fall asleep or they would sweat. So this is just a easy way to be comfortable. Okay. And the point here is to focus on your breath, which is natural. Right? You're not thinking of anything else. Just keep your mind focused on the breath, in and out. Exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. And then just keep your mind just on that breath. If you find yourself kind of wandering off, gently remind yourself to concentrate on the breath and come back to it again. So let's do that for between 2 and 3 minutes. You want to exercise some vigilance. As soon as your mind starts creating thoughts and colors and other things, just slowly, gently remind yourself to go back to the breath again. While breathing is not so exciting, it is still something natural, and it develops the power of concentration and memory. Then we'll continue with our motivation from the same as last class. And this is the opportunity to transform our minds by listening to the most profound subject that Buddha taught. It's the means by which a person can achieve liberation and supreme enlightenment. And regardless of how profound the subject matter is, how blessed the setting is, and how capable or incapable the teacher is, and whether or not we actually advance ourselves on the path to liberation and enlightenment depends principally on the motivation behind the action. Listening is the initial step. And this is for our spiritual development, no matter what forms it takes. So listening, reading, discussion, or watching His Holiness's DVD. As we embark on this voyage into nature of reality, we need many skills. So we need to be selective in our reading and listening, sifting authentic texts from those which can lead us astray. So some discrimination is needed. Persevere. And listen to the teachings from qualified teachers again and again. And even if you listen, but without assimilating what we have listened to, is useless. So the second step is contemplating. It means absorbing more deeply whatever we have heard into our hearts. For instance, hearing that ignorance is a root of samsara will not get us closer to the freedom from suffering unless we apply that knowledge and understand what it means. And the key to this contemplation means to investigate further and have a deeper understanding. And lastly, meditate. Therefore, when you bring your attention to the ultimate objective, which is to achieve supreme enlightenment and benefit each and every living being, then we have found this unique opportunity, met with the teachings, the perfect complete path. So let's take advantage of it so that we can be a perfect cause for happiness of all living beings. So let's try and generate that state of mind. Okay, bring your attention back to the class. So the plan for today, I'll do a very, very brief, very quick, just so we keep connected with what we finished. We'll again focus on ignorance because it's the root of all of our problems, and we need to deep dive a little bit in it. Then we'll talk what they call 12 links, and we'll get to that. Then we'll take a look at the wheel of life, what keeps us going into this samsara again and again and again. So the 12 links and wheel of life are linked together. Why do we need to know that? Is because we currently, in our conventional life and with our ignorant mind, that's what we will do. We will continue to live our life, we'll die, come back, be reborn again, and take those imprints from previous life into the next rebirth, and we continue with the cycle. And the whole idea of learning wisdom of emptiness is to liberate ourselves from that cycle. So then we need to understand when we say things are empty of inherent existence and all these kind of things, how do we look at that? So what they call is dependent arising. So we'll take a look at that a little bit in a little deeper way. Some good examples, some are very basic, some are fun, but at least it will give us an idea of what we're talking about. Then we'll define the word aggregates. Most of you should know it, but if not, I'll have a slide on that. Then the real question comes up on personal identity, self. This is when I was trying to understand emptiness a little deeply and contemplating it. I still had a hard time understanding then who am I really? I mean, I see things the way they are, and I go to work and I come back and I drive a car. And so what is all this? What is it empty of, So that was a fundamental question I had. And over time, things have clarified a little bit and reading and so forth. So maybe I can impart some of that from the readings I have done. And then what we want to do is we think that we are basically caught up now that I have some knowledge of emptiness. I'm going to be Buddha tomorrow. But we have a few more steps to go. And so we'll talk about the 5 paths of bodhisattvas, okay? And then we'll do a closing meditation and then preview the next week's plan. So that's the plan for today. Hopefully we'll get through all of that and hopefully a little earlier, okay? So just very briefly, I'm not going to go through everything, just to let you know so you're connected. So we started with the fact that why do we even want to study emptiness? And basically because we don't want to suffer, right? We have a mistaken mind. What we want is an unmistaken mind. Very simple. It is mistaken because we have ignorance about how things exist. And then we have cause and effect in play because we are conventional beings and we live every single day and we do things we do. We live with concepts and conventions. And then so to give you more, a little deeper dive into it, we talked about the first teaching of Buddha, the Four Noble Truths. And what really my whole point was that the Four Noble Truths, the first one is the truth of suffering. The second one is the cause of suffering, right? So second one is the cause, the effect is the first one. We have suffering because these are the causes. And we talked about the 3 poisons, the ignorance, the anger, the attachment, and then there are other pride and other things that go along with it. That's important to know because we are trying to undo that. We are trying to undo the ignorance so we don't have suffering. So that's the cause. First one is the suffering. Then if you look at the next 2, Buddha says there's a path. Okay, so that's the cause, the effect, it will cease all those sufferings. So that's cessation and then the path. So cause and effect, okay? Second one is a cause, first one is an effect, fourth one is a cause for the third one to be an effect. That's important to know. Then we looked at Lamrim, how through the path, if you really boil down to it, they teach you all kinds of topics about precious human rebirth. This is the opportunity to learn. It's all important. The key piece is karma, where cause and effect are taught, and you learn that. And then you get into types of suffering and 12 links and why we renunciate. And a lot of people have a thought when we think of renunciation, especially if you're from Asia, they think of just leaving everything and going away somewhere in the caves. That's not what they're talking about. You live your life, you have a job, you function, but you must have eagerness to stop this suffering of life, death, complications in life, and need to have that eagerness or yearnness to become a Buddha or liberated. So you learn the three principal aspects of the path. So you need that mind. You realize that this life is nothing but complications, and we'll just cycle through this in different ways, again and again and again. I want to liberate. So that's the renunciation. And there's two things that play next to the renunciation is the wisdom of emptiness. You need to understand that, along with bodhicitta, equanimity. So as you function every day, you develop kindness, empathy, and bodhicitta. As you go through cause and effect, it gets you closer and closer towards your goal, whereas emptiness is another way of looking at how things exist. And they come together, and eventually you get liberated. Okay, so we looked at that. And then we kind of define the two truths that we live with conceptions, so in conventionalities. That's the conventional truth. It's called concealer truth. Why? Because deep down there, we keep on saying that there is no intrinsic existence. We don't exist like the way we feel we do, or we think we do. So we keep on saying those words, but yet we see things. We have our pleasure, we have our joy, we have our pains, our relatives, friends, and all that stuff. So we live with that. So when you're living in conventionalities, we'll talk about that today with dependent arising. So those are the two truths, and they're interwoven. And our goal is to finally understand the ultimate nature of things, to remove the ignorance. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. So we talked about that. And then you got a little thought on where these teachings come from and how different schools evolved and how profound the last school called the Madhyamika Prasangika is what we follow. Big Sanskrit word. It means the middle way of Nagarjuna is what we follow. Okay, and all four schools follow the same teachings. And our lineage teachers have said that is the best and profound teaching. So with that, now we continue. Okay, so let's start with again talking about ignorance. Okay, so we kind of depend on our mental faculties, our intelligence to survive, but we also know that we can be fooled, right? Think about it for a second. Even if you had a neighbor, if you just superficially knew the person and you want to develop a relationship, you may want to know a little more about the person because you want to know how that person really is, very superficial level, okay? Deeper. What is that? Who is that person? So you don't get fooled by him or her. In the same way, we see our reality a certain way, and Buddha is telling us that we live with this ignorance. We don't know how things exist. So it's natural to apprehend things the way that they exist currently. We see things a certain way. And all misconceptions are due to superficial causes. So think about it. Even if you look at our world, external conditions, sometimes we in a fog, or we see a mirage, or we see a bush and we thought we saw a person. That can happen superficially. But internal conditions, when you're sick, okay? When you're sick, or say you are intoxicated, under the influence, whatever the case is, you're going to blend your reality very quickly, right? We sometimes can't think straight. And then strong emotions. Think of anger or hatred. Look at what people do when they're angry. They don't see reality. They don't see facts. They're driven by their emotions, right? And think about our life. So many things we judge, we give opinions and all that based on our mind, our thoughts, right? So those, what we are called, is what drives us right now, okay? And then, of course, our strong egos may not let us admit that we are ignorant of the fact. We think we know it all. Okay? So what Buddha is saying, that the mind can improve with use and by knowing ultimate nature of reality. That's what the whole point is. So we look at the 12 links. This is very interesting. When Buddha was meditating and he got enlightened under the Bodhi tree, first thing he came up, and this is in the teachings of Hinayana very strongly also, he realized how we are ignorant. So not just lack of understanding how things exist, but a mistaken knowing that how phenomena have, we think as an intrinsic existence, how we exist solidly. So what happens with that ignorant mind, we do actions, right? If you have me, my, I strongly, then our actions follow that route. So we do compositional actions, we compose things based on that, and it creates future suffering. From that kind of thinking, we link ourselves to consciousness. Our mind is a causal and resultant action. And this, it gets in our mind, basically. That's who we start to think that way. And so it gets into our consciousness. From there, when we say name and form, it's really talking about, but name means mind, and I'm looking at my notes here, form is body. Okay? When this karmic potential is activated in a new birth has begun, this mind and body refer to our mental status and physical aggregates of new life. So this is how we start from there. Then we start to have six sense spheres, right? We have our touch and eyes and tactile and so forth, right? Smell, all the senses develop. Then from that, what happens is we have a contact. We touch, we can't contact occurs with things, aggregates and sense spheres. I starts developing. I like this, I don't like this, this is good, this is bad. This is based on, of course, we are entangled with object of I, of desire, hatred, and ignorance. So that's what happens with the six sense spheres, contact. Then we start developing this strong feeling of happiness, unhappiness, and indifference that would respectively arise. Then we crave. I like this. I don't like this. So we start craving, right? What makes you happy? Strong drive to obtaining pleasure and avoiding pain. Then from craving, we start grasping. This is when the death is happening. We have a mental factor that has a desirous attachment to some things. And we grasp, and that nourishes our karmic imprint for the next life. So we start really, really grasping at things. And that's what we become. That is our identity. That's the karma we carry. That's who we are. Our mind has that in it so deep that we carry that. And then you have a rebirth, you are going to find a parent, and those karmic imprints then carry on, and you're going to find those tendencies in that kind of environment. That's when you get born again, and they start again. So you never get rid of those things completely. And then the aging and death starts again. And so Buddha realized how people cycle through samsara. Okay, now think about it. If you remove the ignorance, then there are no composition actions related to those deluded mindsets. Then it doesn't get into your mind. Then you don't start to form that in your body and mind. So then when you're born again, you have less of that, right? So it goes all the way. You have less craving, less grasping. Your life is better. Your next birth is in a better state of mind, or you may even liberate yourself depending on how you move forward. But you can understand, he saw this entire cycle in front of him when he was enlightened, that's why we suffer. Because, and what's the root cause? Number one, ignorance, because we don't know how things exist. We don't know the facts. Okay, so having that gives you a little pictorial of that. You might have seen this picture in the entrance of the Kadampa Center. It is a depiction, very nice depiction. So if you look at the center, the image at the hub, it's the three poisons. Okay, it's the ignorance, attachment, and aversion. The second layer shows you the white and the black side, which is the karma. Depending on your karma, you have a good rebirth in good realms, basically, state of mind, or the bad realms. Okay, so you can see very easily. And then the third layer, they again represent the different realms, right? So good realms, and you have the what they call God realms and the demigod realms, and we are in the human realms. And then below us is the animal, ghosts, and the hell realms, they call it. But it's again a state of mind or a dimension based on your proclivity or your propensity of your mind and seeds you carry with yourself. And then the last circle are the 12 links that we talked about, starting from ignorance, developing actions, goes into consciousness, name and body, contacts, six senses, back to craving, grasping, becoming that person, dying again, birth again. The fierce figure in the back represents impermanence. Okay. The moon on the left side, go ahead.
Sorry, Heyman, sorry to interrupt
Uh-huh.
you. We do
The
have
moon
a
on the,
question.
yeah, sure.
The question is, do links mean cycles or reasons for cycles?
No, this is how we function with karma, right? These are when we don't know how things exist, we are still carrying our seeds, our imprints of ignorance, attachment, anger. So this is what we have, we life to life to life. And because of that, it gets in our mind, right? Then we see the world that way. Then we crave for pleasure and happiness based on those ignorant mind and the thoughts. And what happens, it becomes part of our psyche, of our mind. And so it's just telling you how we progress in life towards death, because we become that kind of, we have grasping, we have cravings based on pleasure, happiness, and then we die, we carry that with us. So then we are born again with those tendencies again. That's how we cycle. So it's a life that takes us through all of these patterns, these links to each other, subsequent links of how we progress, and then we die, and then we are born again, and we cycle through again. The only way out of it is to liberate from the first thing, ignorance, and knowing how things exist. That's the whole point. And this picture depicts that because of ignorance, which is the center, it creates this existence of karma, either good karma or bad karma. Then we accordingly live in these different realms based on that karmic life and your situation. And then again, depending on that, we cycle through birth through these 12 links, right? And what the figure in the back is saying is that everything is impermanent, meaning it can be changed. Okay? The moon represents that we can liberate from this completely. And Buddha says, I have a path, I can show you the path. The whole idea behind these two slides is, again, we live in a conventional world. Everything we do is based on projections, based on your mind, right? Everything stems from the mind. Our mind does not know how things exist. And so this class on wisdom of emptiness is trying to at least open up your mind to understand how Buddha and Nagarjuna has said how things really are. Simply by understanding that, first inferentially, then hopefully you will liberate and have a direct vision of emptiness. So even if you understand, you loosen up the anger, the hatred, and see the interconnectedness of everything, how things are. And that's what we are trying to walk through this class. And ultimately, you can understand how things are really. Okay? I don't know if I was clear what those 12 links were. There's a lot of it, even in the Lama Yeshe archives, in FPMT. You can read on that, and very nice explanations are there. I just wanted to bring this up because we need to reach a point to understand, who am I? Why do I see things certain way? Okay, and I'm trying to reach to the point where we understand, at least conceptually, what emptiness means. So let's go forward. I hope that was sufficient. Okay, so we're going to take a look at dependent arising. So what does it mean when we say dependent arising? There are three types of things that we need to think. Things that arise and originate out of causes and conditions, and things that depend on parts, and things that are constructed from words and thoughts. So let's kind of look into that. This is how we perceive. We perceive things because of words and thoughts. Things come into being because of causes and conditions, and they can be broken down further into smaller parts. And then we give a label to it, and that's how we perceive things. So anything that is dependent arising, if it is produced from causes and conditions like a tree, a clay vase, or a cup or a table, whatever, think about it for a second. Look at a tree or a vase, a vase, or whatever you want to call it. You can see a tree. You are conceptually still, the word tree and a picture of a tree as it's real comes up. However, start to break it down a little bit. The tree is surviving based on so many things, minerals and water and fluid, and causes and conditions such as sunlight and temperature and so forth. It came from a seed. The seed came from a fruit. The fruit came from another tree. It goes on and on and on. So while you see the tree, you can also very clearly see it is made up of different parts, has causes and conditions, and we call it a tree. Follow that? See anything you want to see now around you and see how it exists in that way. We see it objectively, we have a label for it, we call it something, a cup, a glass, a table, a TV, a computer, your books, your room, whatever you want to call it. Look at the causes and conditions for that to be there. Now break it apart a little bit, and you can go smaller and smaller and smaller, and then there are conditions for it to be there. If you are sitting in a room, you're paying a rent for it, or you paid off on it. Somebody owned it for a while, but there are causes and conditions for you to be there. Table, chair, everything. So that's what we say. So if something is dependent arising, it is produced from causes and conditions, right? The product or the effect does not come into existence through its own power, because it depends on its causes and conditions to exist. Do we agree with that? Right? So let's take a look at a blade of a grass. A blade of a grass, and it can have multiple causes and conditions. It does not have to be linear, one cause and one condition, okay? Could be multiple causes and conditions. So a blade of a grass is an effect of a seed. The seed transforms into a blade of grass if sufficient conditions exist. Warmth, light, and moisture, for example. See, these conditions are themselves the causes of transformation. So therefore, you can conclude the effects arise from causes. They can be both at the same time. Okay, let's take a look at another example, dinner. If you wanted something to happen like a dinner, you must gather the causes. As soon as you buy the groceries and you plop it on your countertop, is the food ready? Do you have a dinner plate ready? No. It has causes and conditions for the food to come into your plate. It's very simple in many ways. But again, everything is reaching that point when we're going to talk about emptiness of things. Okay, now think of blade of grass, dinner, and we're going to get to it again. I'll repeat this in a certain way, but I wanted to get to your understanding that one way of looking at things, if things are coming into existence that you see right now inferentially or because of names and conventions, and they are dependent on causes, they don't exist on their own. autonomously. Dinner does not exist on its own. It's a name convention we give to a plate of food that has come together from causes and conditions like buying groceries, paying money for it, vegetables coming from the trees, somebody packaged it, goes on and on and on. You can go to atomic level and particles. And even they have causes. So what Nagarjuna is telling us, things do not exist the way you see it. It has causes and conditions, not intrinsically, sorry, not the way you see it. Intrinsically, it has causes and conditions. So we can see the product like a blade of grass arises from its causes, and all the characteristics derived from its causes that we know are not it. Conclusion, whatever product is, does not inherently exist. Another example is a car, okay? The parts of the car is not a car. Steering wheel and the wheel, if you break it apart, we make it a car through those parts, we label it as a car. But each part is not a car. Then we think in our mind, somewhere in the mind saying, wait a minute, it's the whole thing together. That's why we label it a car. But again, it's a label. Simply because you labeled it a car, you see the whole thing and it functions that way, right? So we'll go a little deeper into this because I know this is where I used to struggle. Well, I have a car and I see a car and I can drive it. I know I'm not driving just a steering wheel and I'm not just sitting on a wheel and I'm not sitting on just a chair. There's the whole thing coming together. That's a car, right? So we'll dive a little deeper into that till we get it. So then the third thing is words and concepts. For example, just look at a fictional character, Batman or Superman or whatever. As soon as I say that, and if you're familiar with it, what happens? You see a picture in your mind. They exist as an appearance in your mind. Right there, I can see Batman right now. But it is simply a concept, isn't it? Somebody made it up. But our mind can see it because we have a label, Batman, and then boom, Batman comes. Superman comes to your mind immediately. So that's one small other tidbits. So look at a person. A person is a dependent arising. A person is a product. A person is made up of parts. And a person is a construct of words and concepts. Okay? We are all born from a parent. The person of today is not the person of yesterday or youth. And person whom you are now is not exactly the same as the person you were in youth, as I said, but that the youth is the cause of what you've become, effect. Your cause of what you were doing eventually has cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, a person of today. We are made up of parts. Each moment is a part, even in your mental stream. Not only that, look at your body, parts. We have labels for them, hand and nose and eyes and mouth, but look at it. Really, really think deeply. Who are you made up of? Blood, fluids, maybe some minerals, calcium, oxygen, carbon dioxide, blood cells. That's what we are, right? Parts. So, and then when it comes together, we see a person. When we put it all together, we call it a person. We give it a name. Hemant, Danesh, Linda. All of a sudden, immediately, that person now is there fully. Without those parts and those effects and that naming convention, that person is not really findable. So what we are saying is whatever is dependent arising necessarily does not inherently exist. The person does not inherently exist because it is dependent arising. We perceive through these concepts. So let that sink in a little bit. This is where the mind starts. This emptiness topic is such, it twists people's mind a little bit because we're not used to seeing things that way. So first, just part A right now. We think everything is dependent arising. If things need other situations or other causes, it can't be itself. Does that make sense? Take anything right now. It does not appear static to, it doesn't autonomously exist from its own side because it is dependent on causes, conditions, cause and effect, and a naming, we label it. As soon as you use the word, the name, it, because conventionally and conceptually we've been trained to learn that way. Conventions are not bad. It is simply we've agreed between us. If there were no conventions, we would not be teaching each other and helping each other right now. Conventions are necessary, but it's also important to know that words, as soon as we say it, we see things concretely. But if you really look at it carefully, it has causes and conditions or previous moments. And causes has an effect. And then effect becomes a cause of another effect. It goes on and on and on infinitum until we liberate. So something to analyze, something to think about, something to really contemplate on, okay? So let's think of the word aggregates. When we use this all the time, you mind and aggregates. Aggregates are what makes us or sentient being, a form, feelings, discriminative awareness. What they call compositional factors are all those mental factors. There are 51 of them, except for feeling and discriminative awareness. Our thoughts are going in all different directions from so many factors. And then consciousness or mind. That's what we call aggregates. Okay? Beings of desire and form realms, of course, we don't need to go there. They say that people who are formless may not have a form. So not important at this point in time. So here comes my talk point. I will be talking I've taken some notes. I just want you to, like a meditation, hear this out and contemplate inside as I'm saying these things. Maybe it will go in a certain way, and I hope it is helpful to you. So kind of just lay back and listen to this, okay? So while analyzing emptiness, if we think phenomena does not exist because they cannot be found in your analysis, we say intrinsically we don't exist, it's dependent arising. We say that all the time. Then it would contradict the facts and common knowledge as we see things right now solid. I see Danesh, I see Linda, I see my cup here. And here it is, right? Boom, there it is. So how can you say that? So now we go. They do exist, animate and inanimate, including ourselves. It is from them we experience harm, benefit, happiness, suffering, and so on. So now saying one way, we are saying something, now we are saying it exists in a certain way. So let's talk about that a little bit. So then we might ask, if all phenomena definitely exist, why can we not find them when we search for them? So according to His Holiness, I was reading the book, The Key to Madhyamika. Buddha explains, names and the five aggregates are just names, labels. In the same way, a form is an illusion like all other aggregates are like that. It does not exist on the object, nor on the side of the subject. So why is that? So he says further, so just hang in there for a second. A name and a label is a creation imputed on individual phenomena. a cup, a name, okay? Amy, Tanesh, okay? The names and labels, name labels the immediate form or appearance of each phenomena. Let that sink in a little bit. When bodhisattvas are in deep meditation or practice, they do not see real as real, these names as real, because they do not cling or grasp to them. All five aggregates are simply labels and names. Although we say I, but I cannot be seen. We'll go further. It takes you a little deeper now. What this shows is that all phenomena are just names and labels. We do not find anything existing from the object itself. If you really look at the object and break it apart, it's the parts, causes and conditions, and then they have parts. They also go smaller and smaller, and their causes and conditions goes on and on and on and on. So in reality, it is like that. But as soon as we see something, we see something, we name it, we put it together, we call it, and that's how we see it. So let's go further. This is the indication that phenomena does not exist objectively, but are subjective projections, various names and labels, and that alone is sufficient for their existence, mere, nominal, or relatively. Let that sink in a little bit. And more precisely, they exist as they are commonly known by worldly beliefs and conventions. Get a little deeper. And what we are trying to refute here is when we see solidness, the eye, for example, or the tree as an inherently existing tree, when we see that inherent autonomous existence, we are only refuting that inherent existence. Okay? So an entity existing from the side of the object without depending upon subjective projections of various labels and names, that's what we are trying to refute. So this is, again, a lot of words. I'm sorry, I have to say these things, but just let that sink in a little bit. When you look at something like a tree or a table, look at it. It's simply a name, table. Table is not the leg or the top of the leg or the glass on it or the nails. If we put it together, we create a function out of it and we label it. But when you really look at it, it's the wood and the nails are little irons or aluminum or whatever they are. You break it apart. What brings it together is that name table, and because we have a function, conventional function, and we label it. So now take a look at further. Okay. Per Nagarjuna, from this ignorance, we derive the 12 links, which we talked about, because we see things this way. Therefore, this is non-true existence self, which is held by the state of mind, is to be refuted. A mind that sees the ultimate nature of things, the phenomena, how they really exist, is called the ultimate truth. And the mind that realizes emptiness of that existent, intrinsic existence. Whenever I have these words that I read and I come up with, and I finally they gel with me a little bit more and more and more. I always look at dependent arising. I look at something and see that I call it this, but it's really not there because I see it came from here. Somebody put it together. That self itself was a cause of something else. There were other factors working. They were also an effect of some other causes. So things have been dependent on other factors for anything to be there. And then we label it and we make it a solid existence from its own side. Not that things are not there. There is a production. We simply label it and see it real. And what we are refuting is that intrinsic existence. So just get to that point in your mind. So in Tashi Sering's book on emptiness, he says that not until the end of our journey that we will be able to fully realize the inseparability of emptiness and dependent arising, both of these concepts. Until then, the mind approaching emptiness and the mind approaching dependent arising approach their subjects from completely different angles. You have your own mind with your own ignorant thinking. I have my own ignorance. We see things differently. We may have conventionally agreed to some things, but we still see things differently. And the mind that understands emptiness is a mind realizing that all phenomena does not exist inherently. That's the whole point. And the mind understanding dependent arising, on the other hand, is an affirmative mind realizing how phenomena exist. So here's the cool part. When I say look at the tree, you can see the tree in your mind, right? So it exists. Now you start looking that it came into existence because of name and labels and causes and conditions. So itself didn't just pop up on its own. You agree with that? That's a simple concept. So at least when you look at dependent arising, you see that the tree is not autonomous. It depends on other factors. If things depend on other factors and conditions, it can't be itself. Even if you get to that point, you have some sense of what we are saying it is empty of. I'm really hoping that this makes a little sense. Okay. And it takes a while before both concept, empty of something and dependent arising, seen both at the same time, because our mind conventionally has words and concepts already, because that's how we function, right? So just be aware of that. Then Tashi Sering says, in real, this two needs to be merged. They need to be merged. Our understanding of emptiness should not deny or destroy the empirical or observed experience. On the other hand, the conventional empirical world should not block our understanding of emptiness. So we see things, but have that understanding that we see certain way, but they're not existing on its own. So many factors are playing a role, causes and conditions for things to function. Okay, so that's the point I was going to say. The great masters have said that to understand emptiness leads to a great respect for laws of cause and effect, karma. Because once you realize the non-virtuous states of minds that we always carry with us, if you start to diminish and create virtuous mind, it will lead you to unload all kind of nonsense from our mind, create a calm mind, a kind mind, an empathetic mind. And what happens is, if you start to look at the six paramitas or six perfections, ultimately, all of those things will lead you to understanding of how things are. And you don't have a lot of ignorance left. And therefore, you have a better life or liberate yourself. And so we should not say, whether things exist or not. We just need to ask the question, how do they exist? And how do we perceive them? And once you understand that, then you've reached a point where you have an inferential understanding of emptiness. All we need to know is the main premise is that things and events are said to be absent of inherent existence because they exist only in dependence on other factors. So we can say things do exist. They come, we see it, we perceive it. Just know that what we see is there because of many causes and conditions and other factors. It's dependent arising. It is empty of inherent existence. But look how we feel when the I is there. I am so and so. I want to be liked. I hope I can do this better. I hope people will. I have already so many things going in my mind. And that's why this is what bodhisattvas meditate on. It is 7:54. I have just quick examples. I will not bore you to death. Maybe I don't want to talk about the cup. And again, the example of the cup is basically you look at a cup, it's very infamous example they give you. This is a cup. However, when I look at it, I call it a cup. But when the word cup comes in my mind, there are many cups. There's some cups in Poland and some in Australia and some in India and some in Tibet. Which cup am I talking about? It's just a concept, conventional concept that we agree upon what to call a cup. If a person doesn't speak English and doesn't have this convention, you ask him, bring me a cup, he or she would not have any idea what you're talking about. So that concept is empty. However, we do see this cup in front of us, right? We do see it because our conventional mind confirms that that is the cup I want to drink from. Now let's take a look at this cup. The label is there, so I see it. It functions. But then it's made up of many particles, sand and clay and ceramic and so forth. So are we saying the ceramic is the cup, or is the whole group is a cup, right? And this is where we get, when somebody says, look at the nails and look at the eyes, and we eventually say, no, this whole package, the group mentality, the whole group is what we call the cup, or the whole group is a human being, okay? And so these are called universals or group thinking, okay? But when you really look at the quality of each and everything in it, it is simply a concept by convention, which are words and thoughts and labels. Think about that for a second. When you truly look at it, very honestly look at it, look at that person. Word is a person. That includes body, eyes, looks, color, hair, name, everything. We title it a person. And now look for that person from real factual way. What part of that is a person? It's simply a name for that group of what we observe or see. So all they're saying is things do exist because we conventionally see it, we label it, we function that way. That's how we talk. So things exist and we feel that way. But when you truly see how things are, they are dependent arising and they don't exist from their own self. It's empty of this concreteness. Okay, let's go to the next one. Nope. I think I need to go back. Let's take a look at Harry Potter or Batman. We already did that, so I'm not going to go further with that. It's simply an appearance, right? As soon as they say Batman or Harry Potter, some people are into it, will even know where he lives in England and what he does every day. But he does not exist because it's a concept. That's how our concepts work. Okay, let's take a look at rainbow. We see a rainbow. Beautiful when you see one. But now take a look at it. We see it, we say call it a rainbow. But we know it's an interaction of refraction of light and moisture, right? Even that light has a cause for it to be a light from sun or whatever it is. And moisture also has causes. So when you really look at it, it's just simply an appearance. We label it and we see it. Okay. Now let's take a look at countries and boundaries. If a geese is flying from Canada to United States, does the geese know that I'm leaving Canada and coming to United States? But we immediately know where Canada ends and the United States starts. But if I say that a bird was flying to Mexico, we know. Oh, he just passed Texas. He must be in Laredo right now. You see how labels work. We create boundaries, we create concepts, and that's how we function. But in reality, there is no hard, fast boundary there coming all the way infinitely that says, hey, this is USA existing on its own, and there's Mexico existing on its own. Simply labels. And then we create a concept. Conventionally, we agree, and we say that's how it is. So there you go. I hope that this gives you some thought, something to think about. I can go way deeper into it, but for this class, this is good enough to know that all we are trying to say is everything around you has no concrete existence. It has causes and conditions. We live in this conventional life. And then what happens is that the conventional truth, is a concealed truth. We live with our own projections, our own mind. As we start to see some reality in it, how things are, you loosen up some anger, some hatred, develop kindness, loosen up and see the interconnectedness of everything. Okay, so at least it's inferential, which itself is not a true looking at emptiness, but at least we can start that. So then we think, oh, now that I understand emptiness, I must be very close to emptiness. I must be getting liberated soon. This weekend, I might be liberated if I just read some of these readings and understand it. And they say, not yet. Okay, so I'm going to explain you some things about what they call the 5 bodhisattvas path.
Hey, Mitt, before you move into that, I think you may have answered this question from a student on Zoom, but the question is, so everything is an example of emptiness?
Well, I mean, you can go deep into it and say uncompounded space, or when somebody seizes all the things that will not come back. Can you call that existence? I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, and it gets into real detail of things. But according to Nagarjuna, if there's causes and conditions, it does not exist from its own side. Period. You know, even person becoming Buddha has causes and conditions. Even emptiness is an inferential emptiness. Emptiness is not out there in the clouds. Emptiness is an awareness that is everything. So even inferentially, emptiness is empty. I mean, you want to get detail, I can go into it, but the fact is, for right now, just know that if things do not exist intrinsically, autonomously from their own side, because it's dependent on other things, causes and conditions and factors. Now think about that deeply. I mean, there's a beautiful writings, if you know, is how to practice wisdom. It blew my mind. When I read that, I was like, wow, here's an answer. Here's an answer. I mean, they get into if God exists and if there's an eternal this and eternal that, and he goes, Nagarjuna immediately, Shantideva goes immediately and says, wait a minute. If there's a cause, then it can't be existing on its own. Then it has a desire, then it must create something, then you just go on and on and on and on. So you have a capacity to expand your mind to the point where you see emptiness directly, and you will be liberated. Till then, we live in conventionalities through karma and improving and creating virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind, and eliminate the non-virtues, therefore get closer to liberation and understanding of emptiness. That's the way we function. So don't give up on your job. Don't go away running in the caves. You enjoy your life in a certain way, but know how things are. Don't take it for concreteness. Don't make the person bad because he or she said something to you. Simply that person is doing what his or her mind is basically in his karmic cycle saying. We don't exist intrinsically, so nothing is. If you don't take it personally, it stays with that person. It doesn't affect you. Look at it that way. Okay.
So the student does say thanks and then follows with another question if you're
Sure.
up for that. Is liberation a state that exists without conditions?
No. So liberation is just the third state of Bodhisattva's path, the path of seeing. When you liberate, you still carry what they call afflictive and cognitive tendencies or habitual patterns until and unless you completely become Buddha. There are no more karmic seeds left. You've ceased all karmic non-virtuous thoughts. You are truly a Buddha, an omniscient mind. Omniscient, I have a beautiful slide on omniscient, and maybe just tell you. An omniscient mind can see how people conceptually and conventionally see things, as well as ultimate nature at the same time. knows everything without being impacted. Is a perfect mind completely expanded to its fullest. That's good for this class because we can go into a lot of nitty-gritty in here. So 8:05, so we have a few minutes to go to cover this point, okay? So let me get to make sure I have everything developed here. Okay. So when we say that now that I have an inferential understanding or somewhat understanding that we don't exist independently because we are dependent on other things, and when we label things, we see things the way they are because of our concepts and our conventions. That's how we see. You know, Lama Yeshe, I was reading it's amazing. I was in Facebook yesterday, and the first thing I clicked was the Lama Yeshe. And he's saying that when he was young, he was called Dondrup Dorje. Nobody knew who he was. He said, I was some guy named Dondrup Dorje. Now that I'm in monastery and I'm Lama Yeshe, everybody's Lama Yeshe, Lama Yeshe, Lama Yeshe. Nobody knows what Dondrup Dorje was. So we live in these bubbles because of names like that, you know? And he says, even if you look at me right now, I'm just that name, Lama Yeshe. It's like a scarecrow, he says. You know, you put a scarecrow in it, then you put all kind of concepts on it. It's supposed to do something, you know. So just know that how we work in conventions, how things are. Do we need conventions? And certainly to speak, but having a knowledge of how things are makes us a better person, right? Because it's in the mind. Okay. So when we start with the first, so what Bodhisattvas, they have 5 paths that they follow. The first of the 5 paths leading to Buddhahood, usually translated as path of accumulation. Lama Zopa Rinpoche calls it path of merit, because the activity of this path is accumulation of merit. Okay, it is the understanding of emptiness is still inferential, like we are doing right now. We're trying to grapple with the word emptiness. Empty of what? Inherent existence. What does that even mean? Solidness means it exists on its own without any causes and conditions. So we know at least that much. To deepen your awareness even further, it's essential to develop another mental factor called single-pointedness of mind. Okay, so right now, path of accumulation. So when you start to develop the single-pointedness of mind, no other delusions are there. You're simply straight in that, what they call shamatha, single tranquil abiding. Okay, then you stable your mind with trying to see how things are in reality, emptiness, meditate on emptiness. In this way, you arrive at this union of tranquil abiding and penetrative insight of self also. Is sometimes in Sanskrit called vipassana. There are meditative places called vipassana centers. Vipassana is insight. When your mind is completely still and calm, everything is calm, you get the insight, vipassana. From this point onward, there will be a gradual reduction of dualistic appearances. And you will reach a meditative equipoise on emptiness. It will start to kind of come together for you. So think about that for a second. You take all these roommates from the mind that currently make a lot of chatter out, single pointedness, calm, and you're meditating on how things are. All of a sudden, these go away. You are you will be in a state of mind that you can kind of grapple a little bit with emptiness. Only when you reach the third state, path of seeing, is also called the true path. They say that the gradual diminishing of dualistic appearance will culminate into direct and utterly non-conceptual realization of emptiness, a state free from dualism. That's called path of seeing. This is when you become an Arya being. But even an Arya being has certain minuscule tendencies from many, many births. We carry those still. There are some small, small tendencies. While their mind is clear, certain things are just there, they say. So then they go into the path of meditation. From this there on, there are small, small 10 stages that a bodhisattva goes through, removing all those what they call afflictive and cognitive tendencies or predispositions, very minute, till they reach a point where there is nothing left and they immediately get into Buddhahood. Their mind is pure, and that is no more learning required. You've ceased all obscurations. They generate extremely, in path of meditation, they generate an extremely powerful wisdom of emptiness, remove all habitual patterns at that point at the last stage. And sometimes you hear words as 10 grounds, 10 stages, 10 levels. Don't get worried. It's just simply we are in path of accumulation, we have inferential thought. Path of preparation, we meditate and really have an insight to it. That means you need to meditate, you need to contemplate. And when you start to really see emptiness at quite a bit of time, you realize emptiness, you are in path of seeing. From there on, these stages are there, small, 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 small things where you remove every thought that are dualistic. You are in path of meditation and you reach a final ground where you are basically single pointed, you are nothing but pure mind, and that's path of no more learning. It is not a blank mind. Okay, don't think that, oh my gosh, Buddha's mind knows everything. Mind's nature is to know, but not the way we are thinking right now, because we don't have even that concept. Okay, it knows how conventions conceptually beings are, and it also knows the ultimate nature of things directly. And it's also omnipotent, is able to go and benefit others as need be. So these are 5 paths. This is in preparation for our next class on Heart Sutra. And when you start reading things like no nose, no eyes, no ears, you will start to understand where these paths are working. I will try to relate them to this path. Okay, and what does that mean? They are simply labels, remember? So remember that. Okay, so this is good for today. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions in your mind. I'm very open to them. We can discuss it offline, online, or if you want to carve out some time, just let me know and I will give you some time to speak. But for right now, this was very important to get you to a point where just making you understand what dependent origination was, how we name and label something and we see it. And then because of our causes and conditions, we throw projections on it, and that's how we perceive it. And what really we are saying is all these things that we see, if you really look at it, it has causes and conditions, other factors that come into play, and itself is an effect of a cause, becomes a cause of an effect. It goes on and on and on. Things do come into production. We simply see it and label it, and we call it that it is. But if you look at it, you're changing right now. That table exists, it will be there tomorrow, but it is not the same table it was today because things will deteriorate. It may take longer. All your appliances will die one day. They die quickly. Okay, things will continue to change. And all we are saying is you have this opportunity to really see that and make that change in your own self and remove non-virtual states of mind. Okay, so let's go into meditation. This meditation, is on looking at oneself as you go through what they call a death process. In impermanence and death, DB, you may have heard that our body goes through, first it loses the earth element, then it loses the water element, then it loses the fire element, then the breathing stops, and they say, well, you're flatlined. Okay, you have no more, nothing is working, heart stopped. In Buddhism, they go further. There are still winds in the body, subtle winds are still working through your channels, and they eventually go. You see these appearances, eventually you see this white light, and then you're finito, you're gone. The point is that when you're alive, you have such concreteness to our life right now. We see ourselves, we see our names, we see our functions, our jobs, our position, our reputation, all of these things, what we perceive to be so real, so solid. That's what drives us. So this meditation hopefully loosens some of that. Okay, but you should also know that when a body dies, the name is gone. The body is buried or cremated. It no longer is there. You are in a dreamlike state called bardo. Then you associate with a new function and new rebirth depending on your practice, depending on your karma, whether you become a Buddha or you get another life, new name, new life. Causes and conditions continue, and your mind, your seeds, they come out. They again, what they call, there's a fruition of those imprints, and then your life again starts with the 12 links. So understanding that. So just relax, take some deep breaths, and just focus on your breath for about maybe a minute or two. Now imagine that your body is shutting down. Don't worry, this is simply a meditation. Your sight dims and it eventually goes all together. There is not even an appearance of the back of your eyelids. Your hearing grows faint until all outer sounds and even the sounds of your body disappear. Now you lose the sense of taste and your body grows numb, and you no longer feel the weight, temperature, soft, smooth, hard, rough. You lose all sense of body movement. And then your sense of smell leaves. Meanwhile, your thoughts are changing. As your senses grow dim and your thoughts appear more clearly like a clear dream, familiar images, however, all appear equal, as if you have become a detached observer. Your experience of these mental objects become neutral, that is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. You even lose ability to recognize these objects. You forget their names. Just observe. You even lose the sense of what is going on or that there is a purpose for anything. You let go of stream of thoughts as there is no reason to hold on to it any longer. The thoughts fade away into darkness and disappear altogether. The darkness is not absolute. There is an illumination like a night of a full moon. Be aware of this without naming it or thinking about it, like the alert stare of an infant. Now imagine a white illumination gives way to a red illumination. like the sky of or on a sunset, at a sunset. Stare at it with intense awareness. Now start imagining that this light fades away into some darkness, deeper and deeper and deeper. And just notice that though there is nothing there, there is awareness. You are aware of it. Now, notice how transparent it is, like a clear crystal. Notice there is no center or periphery, no subject, nor object distinction. Stay in the clear awareness. When you can no longer hold your attention with this state of utter simplicity, you can come out of it, but you're still in meditation now. Think of the concepts around you. Now notice how concepts form again, starting with the subject, object distinction start coming back. Maybe you're thinking about when this meditation will be over. Is it 8:30? Do I need to do something? And notice how this distinction provides the basis for identifying characteristics, such as appearances, purpose, identities, and feeling tones. And notice how grasping at this reality, all this leads to more solidity until awareness is directed through physical sense doors and connects with your physical objects. So let's dedicate. Determine that you will build on whatever insight you might have gained through this class tonight and this meditation until you achieve the supreme insight, and dedicate your efforts to become a perfect cause for happiness of all beings. Thank you. So next class, we'll cover the Heart Sutra. Okay, there's a small clip I have from Dr. Thupten Jinpa. He was Jinpa, should be not Jinpa, Jinpa. He was the translator for His Holiness. He's written many books, teaches currently. It kind of clears up form is empty, emptiness is form. It will also concomitantly look at Heart Sutra with the five Bodhisattva paths. We'll do a 4-point analysis, and then we'll do meditation. Okay, and we should have some time left for Q&A. So what I want you to do really for homework, you can continue your reading. There's a really beautiful reading on Mahamudra. If you've read your last classes about how to look for I and duality and all that, very helpful. But really, Lama Yeshe has written a very beautiful a little reading material called Mahamudra. At least read that one. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche is a pretty lengthy one. It's called How to Meditate on Emptiness. Up to you. If you're busy, at least start to see if you can read Mahamudra. But then we will and contemplate very deeply on dependent arising for right now. And inferentially, what is it empty of? What things are empty of? Inherent existence, autonomous existence. Really think through that. Allow your mind to go deeply and look at things around you, how things are, why things come so solid to you. And things, if I didn't have name, if I did not know this conceptually, would I know what it is? Think through that. And then we'll be open to question and answers, and we'll take a deeper dive, okay? Thank you for today.
Thank you, Hemant. So yeah, so if there's any questions about accessing the course materials and some of the readings, when you enrolled in the course, which you had to have in order to get the Zoom link, you should have received an email. And in that email, there's a password there's a username and a password. So you just go to the Kadampa Center website and then put a /user. And this is all explained in the email. And then enter that password and the username and the password, and that'll take you to the Discovering Buddhism course materials. So if you have any questions, though, just email me and I can help you with that. Anyone have any questions before we head out?
Linda, can I suggest one thing? This
Yes.
article that I read on Lama Yeshe is really very interesting article on very topic we are talking about dependent arising and
Mhm.
naming. If I send it to you, the PDF, can you just throw it in the materials there?
Absolutely.
I'll
Yes.
do that tomorrow, so you could take your time as far as
Okay.
people get it.
Okay. Sounds good.
And it's 8:26, 4 more minutes. Any particular specific question you have about class today? No, just keep in mind what we are looking for, how things are, how conventionalities work, and how we picture it, and how we see it, and how we function. Put that together and see if it really, really gels with you or not. Okay,
Thank you so much, Amit.
thank you.
We'll see everyone next week. I
Thank you,
like that,
guys.
Rainey. Rainey just sent up hearts.
Nico, Jivan, Danesh, all you guys, Carmen, people I can see so far, Patty. And then I see Rainey and Carolyn and Amy and Martin and Maria, Lou, Rebecca, all kind of people. My gosh, Kurt, so many still connecting. Fab, everybody, thank you.
Thank you, Amit. See you next week.
Thank you.